NFR Extra follows all your favorite cowboys, interviews legends of rodeo, and talks to the best of country music. Follow Nevada Caldwell, Ryland Bentley, and Steve Godert every week as they delve deep into the stories behind the road to gold in Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo. It's revealing, comedic, and sometimes emotional. Find it on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. NFR Extra. All dirt, all rodeo, all year.
Well, I think when we first came, I remember I was 11 years old the first time it was in Las Vegas. And, we left Oklahoma City and everybody thought it was so successful there, and it had been. And the fact that they were moving it when it had been so successful there, everybody was like, oh, we'll be back in 5 years. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. Oh, don't worry, we'll be back in 5 years. It's a 5-year deal and we'll be back. And we moved to Las Vegas. It just became such an experience. It took on a whole life of its own. It went from being just, the year-end national finals to this whole growing phenomenon that just kept growing. The money got better, the event got larger, television became bigger. The tourists that came from all around to come to this event, they traveled farther, they came from other countries. It just grew within, it took on a life of its own within the city. They used to talk about how December was like the worst month in Las Vegas at one time, and now that it's become one of the best months, mainly because of the National Finals Rodeo. Well, that's a huge thing to say about such a large city that hosts so many different events and such a small, at the end of the day, rodeo is such a small demographic of our whole country that in its own would take on a life of its own in a city of such large magnitude. And it does. That whole city just is, when you're in Las Vegas during the NFR, whether it's the music awards or whatever else is going on, there's a rodeo in town. It's just everywhere. It's literally, it engulfs the city of Las Vegas, and that's huge. Las Vegas is so huge. For some sports to be able to engulf it like that is kind of crazy.
NFR Extra, episode 111. Kirsten Vold takes time off the ranch to visit NFR Extra. She shares memories of the Duke of Chutes, what sets women in rodeo apart from other professional sports, the special bond between girls and horses, and the NFR Las Vegas. Enjoy our conversation with Kirsten Vold on NFR Extra.
Finding your custom NFR experience in Las Vegas just got a lot easier. New this year is a resource that links you to every hotel offer. At nfrexperience.com/stay your way, you can shop for the hotel that best fits your plans. Everything is there. Information on viewing parties, concerts, price, transportation, location, and so much more. All in one place. Go to nfrexperience.com/stay your way. One Vegas. Stay your way.
This is National Finals Rodeo announcer Roger Mooney from LJ, Georgia, saying I'm all ready for NFR Extra.
The youngest of 6 children, Kirsten started taking over the Vold Rodeo Company when she was 25 years old, and since that time has managed to build on the legacy that her Canadian-born father began nearly 6 decades ago. Homeschooled until her freshman year in high school, Vold grew up on the road, ensconced in the life of the cowboy and the excitement of the rodeo. Kirsten now spends more than 200 days each year on the rodeo trail and oversees what is undeniably one of the leading rodeo stock companies in the industry today. Kirsten's greatest personal achievements is Painted Valley, a breeding stud whose accomplishments include 6 Wrangler NFR appearances, voted Best Saddle Bronc Horse of the 2009 NFR, and named PRCA Saddle Horse of the Year in 2010. In 2015, Kirsten Vold was inducted into the Rodeo Hall of Fame. Whether at the rodeo or the ranch, Kirsten's horses are her life, and she is committed to breeding and raising champions. Kirsten Vold, welcome back to NFR Extra. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great today. We got some rain here last night, so things are always looking up when we get moisture.
Yeah, well, we're here in the desert, and Jesus, we pray for rain. Probably we can just get it for an hour. It's nice, so yeah, I hear you on that.
You know how that can be, absolutely. We were, as much wind as we had yesterday, we would have been one giant match today if it wouldn't have got some rain last night, so I'm very grateful.
We're glad to have you on. When we first were coming out of the out of the chutes, no pun here, with this podcast. You were one of our, I think it was like our 8th guest or something like that. We also had Stetson Wright, which, God, that kid was just coming up and no one knew. They knew of him, but they didn't know of him the way they do today. So.
Well, of course, yeah, he's definitely filled his legacy of everybody, of his family. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
So let's focus on the Vold. Not being the super historian rodeo guy, I learned a lot about the Duke of the Chutes, right? Who is this guy, and to you personally and to the industry, because obviously he's big in both worlds?
The Duke of the Chutes was a nickname that was given to my father, Harry Vold, and it was given to him by Bob Tallman, actually the rodeo announcer, and that was just because of his likeness to John Wayne, of kind of just the way he walked and his swagger and build, I guess, and stuff like that. And he'd be going back and forth in front of the chutes, and I guess that's where, Bob Tallman, with the language that we know he has and the flair he has for words, he put that together, and then it just stuck. And, here we are decades later, and it's still a notorious thing that goes along with his name. But my dad was a major player in rodeo. He passed away in 2017 at the age of 93, but he was still chasing horses up until, the weekend before his death. I mean, he loved what he did, and he loved bucking horses. He came from Canada and brought his business down to the United States, and he participated in every national finals rodeo from the first one in Dallas in 1959 through 2016 was his last one that he was at. So, it's great to have that as somebody to learn from, and I appreciate all the doors that he opened for me. And, whenever you follow somebody like that in this business, it's very important that you just don't want to do anything to tarnish the reputation that he has set up. That's probably been my biggest challenge through life, is you just want to make sure and stay to the standard that he set. And I'm grateful for that, because I see a lot of second generation people that have to live out their family's legacy. They have to try to be, their dad was kind of a scoundrel, and so they got to try to do better than him so that people can trust them. And I never had that problem, and so I'm very grateful for that.
You said scoundrel. That's awesome.
I don't really know where that came from.
Same topic, but a little different. The cowboys that are getting on the stock that you are hauling throughout the world. Cowboys enter certain rodeos based on stock contractors that are providing for them. Do you know of one certain cowboy that really just connects with your stock, like the way that they buck? Do they have a preference to come to your rodeos just for that?
Oh, I hope there's several that see that we're the stock contractor and like coming getting on our horses. We try to be known for more rider-friendly horses. They kind of gone away from the era of they call them the stock contractor horses or the stock contractor bull. And those are the horses or the bulls that were hard to ride, but they bucked the cowboys off most of the time, and the crowd cheered. And they were, those are, and we've had our share of them, don't get me wrong. In the era of rodeo now, where contestants are so hard to come by and there doesn't seem to be enough to go around to all the events that are going on at the same time, you want to try to provide animals that guys want to come get on, that they know that they're not, if they're bareback riders, they're not heavy, so they're not strong and jerking on their arm. They're not likely to turn them out. These are all the things that the challenges that you have whenever you're trying to put together a herd that the cowboys want to come get on. And I guess the first one that comes to mind, we have a kid that grew up a couple hours from us, Logan Patterson. He's a bareback rider, and he's always wanting to know. He's like, "Are you going to be there? Where all you going to? What rodeos are you going to?" And I appreciate that, because I know that he does like our stock, and I hope that he's not the only one that feels that way. He's just kind of the first one that comes to mind.
So
I love that.
So there's also this relationship, right, that comes with that, because how you do things and how you work with them, there's also this connection, not even just at the rodeo, but right, there's almost like practice times or how you connect with these guys if they're coming through and they need practice runs, or that kind of plays into this too, right? As I think like athletes do that too off the side, in the off season, they're like, "Hey man, meet up with me and we're going to train." I mean, you have that with the Cowboys as well, right?
Sure. Yeah. I don't think we never buck anything here at the ranch. Long time ago, they had some schools here, long when I was a little kid. It just doesn't really, we're just not set up for it. So we'll go to places, we'll go to colleges. Obviously with COVID last year when things were shut down, there were limited places that the guys could go to stay in shape. And so we actually went to Ordway, Colorado, allowed us to come to their county fairgrounds. And we just started having practices there. I think it was Monday night was the best for, the people that came and volunteered and helped, strip and shoot and pull gates and picked up. And guys were just, some of the college kids were wanting a place to go. The schools were all shut down. Some of these cowboys that were, wanting to stay practice. Logan was there. Will Martin was there. Cole Franks came and practiced with us last year in COVID. And then he just in 2020 in COVID, and then he just took a fire in 2021, and he's been on fire ever since San Angelo this year, and is going to his first national finals here in a month. And those guys we had come in there, we had a little jackpot for them, and then we just had practices, and it was a great place for us to get some of our young horses bucked. Great place for some of those guys to just have a chance to go somewhere. Yeah, I guess what I liked the best about all of that is when you got out there, people weren't worried about the world going crazy. Everybody just kind of came together, and we came back to the roots of what we all enjoyed, which was fucking horses and bulls.
Was there ever a time, maybe even through your dad's eyes, that you looked forward to heading into the NFR, that you saw a matchup of a certain cowboy going to get on that stock? Was there ever those kind of moments that with the family or through Pops kind of seeing that? Like the draw at the NFR, of course, we draw the night before. And so you don't have a whole lot of time to worry or stress or get excited about too many of the matchups, because it's not like a week ahead that this is going to happen. So, but yeah, there's been some great matchups over the years. Cody Wright won, I think, title number 2 on Painted Valley. Those, you're excited about that. I know when Billy had Bobby Joe, that was like the last time we bucked him was at the NFR. There's been some great matchups that you look forward to. That you've seen. I'd have to say I don't know if you look forward to them as much as you remember them after you've watched them. And that would probably have to, I don't think any of us will ever forget, Billy Ebauer on Blood Brother of Birch Rodeo Company. That horse pulled everything but a switchblade on him, and he rode him through it. And, those are the things that stick in your mind, or not so much the preparation before they happen, but after they happen, watching them. The fascinating part for me is kind of an outsider guy is when we have, running digital and when we're putting things out there, whether it be highlights or images and whatnot. What I love is when we put out there and the cowboy is, where you don't reference the stock. And I love the fans, like, who is the stock? Like, it's so like that deep fan that truly gets it I think it's fun because that's in other sports, you don't get that, right? Like it's just the athlete. Right. That's it. And the number in the back on the name on the back of the jersey. But yeah. It's fascinating. No, the animals in rodeo are definitely, there's some very famous animals over the years. And I always tell people is that the animals, these are all athletes as well. They train like the cowboys. They eat like the cowboys. They're on regiments like the cowboys. These aren't just horses that we gather in and bring in and load up on a truck and cross our fingers and hope for the best that things will work out. There's a plan from the time they hit the ground until they hopefully end up in your arena. City Joe certainly thinks that you guys just bring in, horses from out in the back and things like that. But it's, I love that they learn. I know. I get a lot of. I just got a message. I think yesterday off Messenger or Facebook. You get requests from people that still don't really understand. They're like, I have a horse that is bucking everybody off. I just need to bring him to a rodeo and pay. You guys pay me to buck him or something. And I'm like, it doesn't really work that way, but it is. There's a lot that people don't understand the process of what goes into getting those animals to that level, and the breeding and the genetics, and now we're getting into cloning and flushing mares, and that science has been brought into this. And anytime you bring, there's more expense and everything else, but that's the only way that you improve the level of competition. And you just look at the caliber of animals that'll be at the rodeo in Las Vegas in a month, and they'll be phenomenal. And that only happens because of so many different people working at it. Absolutely. You're listening to NFR Extra with our guest, Kirsten Vold from Vold Rodeo Company. Let's take a quick break. NFR Extra follows cowboys, talks to legends and country stars, and finds the stories that make up the season that leads to the annual showdown in December. Follow me, Nevada Caldwell, Brylan Bentley, and Steve Goder as we delve deep into the stories in and behind the road to gold. Listen to NFR Extra on Rural Radio, Channel 147 on Sirius XM every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, with a re-air Tuesday in the same time slot. NFR Extra, all dirt, all rodeo, all year.
This is Cody Old, 6-time world champion, and you are on NFR Extra.
Kirsten Vold here on NFR Extra. Let's talk about women. Can you touch a little bit on that, on how women's in this sport are set apart from professional sports, and also what ties them together? I mean, what's so unique about it?
Well, I guess, and I know that I've never really been hung up too much on whether my gender made a difference in what I did. But I will just say as a whole, I think, there's a lot more women in rodeo than people necessarily think there is. They just do jobs that aren't right in the spotlight. And, like there's been rodeo secretaries and timers and wives of contestants and stock contractors that have been in the back feeding the horses, hauling the horses. There's a lot of times these cowboys are flying all over, and the people that are getting those horses from one state to 7 states over in 24 hours, that's the wives or the girlfriends or the mothers, or, there's a lot of females in this business that don't necessarily get the recognition that they probably should or deserve. Because of my position, I get probably more than more than I need. But, I think that there's not really anything that you, in our business that you can't do because you're a girl. Physically, if I was to say what my weaknesses are compared to the other people doing what I do, it's obviously going to be physical strength, because I'm never going to be physically as strong as the men that I work with. Even a weak man, even an out-of-shape man that's just genetics. He's just going to be born stronger than I am. And so as far as things go, like if I would say the things that bother me or irritate me that I don't have, in this business, it would be physical strength is never as strong, but you can always make that up in other things, or you just get somebody to help you do things. And I would say that it's definitely getting, as far as women getting more put in the spotlight, absolutely. I think there's just roles opening up, a lot of rodeo committees, presidents. I'm the chairman of our rodeo committee at the Colorado State Fair, and my subcommittees, when I was working on this project, out of 7 of them, 6 of them are females. It just goes to show you that a lot of females just happen to take a more detailed in charge role in a lot of times. And so I don't think that that's new. I just think maybe the opportunities have opened up a little bit more. And so then they just are women are taking advantage of them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Do you see, for instance, you see in other sports, you see women starting to play a little bit of football. I mean, they start off as a kicker, and then I've seen some gals play linebacker. And again, going back to your physical side, but man, there's some ladies out there that can cross over and have no problem throwing hits down or hitting it out of the park.
Sure.
Have you seen a little bit, being in the business you have as long as you have, are you seeing women jump on stock a little bit more, or is it still kind of the same of what you've seen?
I don't see a ton of it. I will say we did a PBR school with the PBR SPC Center here. We did one about 10 days ago, and then we've done one this spring with them. And some of their students that had come through were young girls. This spring, I know there was 1, and then I noticed there was maybe 2 this fall. And the one little girl was like 13. I mean, she was pretty young. She'd been younger, she'd have been a boy, And I mean, they put them on bulls that were set for her ability, but it was a full-size bull. It was definitely, she definitely had a lot of try to her, and she kind of got knocked around on the first one, and she got a reride, and she sure took it and really kind of got wrecked out the second time and got back up. And so, I don't think, obviously the opportunities are there if you want to. Yes, physically you're not really built as much for it, so you're going to have to work harder. But in anything you do, if you really want it bad enough, you just have to work harder to achieve it. I know that in several major sports like NASCAR, I don't follow NASCAR. I know who Danica Patrick is. I don't know if that's if she's that good or if she's just like the hottest one, if that's the reason she kind of gets the most coverage, or if there's a lot of them that are, that I just don't know any of the other ones, but you see her a lot. I know that you'll see Nike commercials of different sports for, referees and stuff like that, first NFL referee that was a female and she was doing some. So, I think that's all good. I think that you can do anything you want to do. I don't think you need to get hung up as to gender or anything else, but whether you're a man or a woman, or you just need to work hard and you got to try hard. And I don't think there's really any doors closed to you. You just have to maybe push a little harder to get them open.
It's a definitely unique system out there that exists that, we all dance around but I get what you're saying and it makes sense. It's, it's, as I'm raising a daughter, I see this universe and I'm like, man, I just want to help and I want to make sure I don't say the wrong things. And my wife's tough. Like she'll check me 24/7 on the gender stuff. And like, it doesn't matter. She speaks just like you. So, I
hate for the fact that it's gotten so politically correct awareness that men are afraid to say anything because you never know what's incorrect. And I dislike that part. Like I don't want to have to just check everything that I say and worry that you're, and there's a difference if it's something really bad. But in overall, you should be able to say something and people don't get their feelings hurt, whether it be a girl or not. Just toughen up. And that's just kind of what it is. That's in life. You gotta be pretty tough in life, period. Whether it's rodeo, baseball. I don't know anything about soccer. I just saw some female just retired that obviously was very, award winning. And any athlete, whether that had been a man or a woman, hats off to them because we all know how many hours of training and games and everything. Her statement was, please know that every time I stepped on that field, I gave 110%. And I think that's great. But I would hope that if a man was retiring after all those, that they would say the same thing. So I don't think it's really a gender thing. It's just personality. You got to try your hardest to do whatever it is you're doing. And man or woman, you should accomplish your goals.
Yeah. So I'm into coaching, just kind of like sidebar this, but I coach my daughter's team. And what's funny is when we're playing games, you get into the more competitive side and it gets heated, right? And women, is anything I've come across, play when it really comes down to it, like the way they play, they may be a lot of
brutal.
Yeah.
They're
100%. Yeah. But what's funny is sometimes it'll happen because my daughter's small. She's good. She can hang. She's tough. But she'll get stomped on, and I'll hear the gasps, right, from like parents around there.
Oh, sure.
Then 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. What I hear next? Get up, and go. You're okay. And you know who that is? Mom, in the back, just pushing and just like, get over it. It's like the same way we raised our son. It's the same way we raised her. But anyways,
absolutely, and that's the best way to be. You can't really. You just people just got to be tough. And I don't care what the situation is, emotionally, physically, whatever. You got to kind of have to take the roll with the punches. And you can't let something small or big knock you down because otherwise pretty soon they'll stack on top of each other and, you lose your confidence or you lose your momentum. And that's never good, no matter what you're talking about.
This is NFR Extra, and our guest today, Kirsten Vold.
December in Vegas. What does that mean? It's time for the Wrangler NFR and the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, the ultimate shopping and entertainment experience. Catch live shows on the Ariat Rodeo Live Stage, the Yeti Junior World Finals, autograph sessions, and much more. Open daily with free admission at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Visit NFRExperience.com for details. The Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas. It's all here.
Hi, this is Jim Dewey Brown, General Manager of Prescott Frontier Days, joining you on NFR Extra.
Kirsten Vold is here on NFR Extra.
Probably one of the best things about like the Western lifestyle is that keep going, get up, get it done. That's one of the things that just happens in rodeo that people don't really see is a lot of times like these cowboys, especially at the NFR, sometimes they get hurt and they have to push through it and they have to say, it's only 8 seconds. And that mental side of the rodeo is incredible to see people just push through. We talked to Cody Ole about having a blown out knee And it was just everything, you just keep going. And that's something that's so instilled that, the old cowboy way was to just always keep going, where now I think our cowboys are a little bit smarter and go to Justin Sports Med and get checked out and wrapped up. But it's incredible to see that commitment from this world.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And they do. Like, I am constantly amazed by these guys and how tough they can be. And some of them, aren't all very old or not very big. And I mean, they're, I tell this, it's a funny story, and they wouldn't even really, there's this bulldogger, and he sprays his ankle in Houston, and this has been probably, 10 years ago. And he was telling, and so he went into the Justin Healer room, and he's got his leg propped up, and he's sitting there iced on his ankle, and he's watching the screen, and there's this bull rider that gets bucked off, and then he comes out, or he rides or something, but he comes out, and he comes straight to the locker room, and he strips down in that Justin Healer room, and he said he was black and blue literally from his neck down. And he said, this kid weighed about 150 pounds, and he said he literally was black and blue everywhere, and he just got off that bull, and he said, I took my leg off my ice pack, and I hobbled out of the room. He's like, I was a little embarrassed. We found out, Wesley Silcox was the bull rider. We figured that out later. And, but that's the thing. I mean, those guys ride hurt. So there's a saying, you can ride hurt, you just can't ride injured. If you ride injured, you usually can't be your best, but you can ride through the pain. And they do it all the time. And you're right. It is commendable to see them power through mind over matter, and they do it. And that happens in other sports, like remember the little Olympic girl that sprained her ankle and they went off and did the vault run and everything. I'm sure everybody remembers that from the U.S. Olympics.
Was that Simon?
Years ago.
I think it was Simon Biles. Is that Simon?
No, it was a little blonde girl back. I mean, that's been quite a while ago. Oh. But she did you remember that where she was the last one to run and she sprained her ankle, and she wasn't even a star before that, but of course she became famous after that because she powered. She was crying and everything else, but she went back and just off adrenaline alone and did a perfect 10 or did her vault run or whatever, and couldn't even stand afterwards. But they won the gold, and that was the big thing. I can't even tell you what town, what city, country it was in when they did that, but it was a big. It might have been Atlanta. Was it Georgia when they had it in Georgia?
Yeah, I believe so. And that it wasn't just a regular little sprain. Like that was like bad.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, like her ankle literally.
Yeah, no, it was a bad deal, but she powered through it. I guess my point is she powered through it. Like the adrenaline got her, and she just had one goal, and she had worked her whole life to come to that spot, and she wasn't going to let an injury stop her, and she didn't.
Yeah, pain is definitely part of the process.
Yeah, it was in Atlanta. Carrie Allison Strung Fisher.
Yep, that was her.
Yeah, she was she was awesome. And you're right. What was fun about that, which I would love about pop culture, is like going forward, there was just like fun. If there were memes back then, which there wasn't, people carrying her, and doing things, having fun with it, and kind of how she came back and just finished the event, which was gigantic. And you're right. That's small gal who probably weighs as much as a bull rider. No pun. I'm just kidding there. But
But I mean, you think about that. Like, I don't follow gymnastics. I don't follow anything. But that stuck in my mind. And why did it stick in my mind? Because you watch somebody power through a moment and just be like, wow, like she had one thing there, and that was she was going to accomplish it, and she did. And whether you're talking about gymnastics at the Olympics or rodeo, the 9th round at the NFR, you have to admire anybody that's willing to put such a mindset that they feel no pain. They just they're there to accomplish something, and they're there to do it.
Yeah, we see it time in and time out, definitely during the NFR and then all through the season. Real quick, talking about the NFR, you mentioned that your family's been a part of this process since day one with the National Finals Rodeo. And, then obviously we came here in the mid-'80s and things have just, like a rocket ship. What makes Las Vegas and the NFR so incomparable to anything that it's been before or where it's possibly going?
Well, I think when we first came, I remember I was 11 years old the first time it was in Las Vegas. And, we left Oklahoma City and everybody thought it was so successful there, and it had been. And the fact that they were moving it when it had been so successful there, everybody was like, oh, we'll be back in 5 years. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. Oh, don't worry, we'll be back in 5 years. It's a 5-year deal, and we'll be back. And we moved to Las Vegas, and it just became such an experience. It took on a whole life of its own. It went from being just, the year-end national finals to this whole growing phenomenon that just kept growing. The money got better. The event got larger. Television became bigger. The tourists that came from all around to come to this event, they traveled farther. They came from other countries. It just grew within. It took on a life of its own within the city. They used to talk about how December was like the worst month in Las Vegas at one time, and now that it's become one of the best months, and mainly because of the National Finals Rodeo. Well, that's a huge thing to say about such a large city that hosts so many different events, and such a small, at the end of the day, rodeo is such a small demographic of our whole country that in its own would take on a life of its own in a city of such large magnitude. And it does. That whole city just is, when you're in Las Vegas during the NFR, whether it's the music awards or whatever else is going on, there's a rodeo in town. It's just everywhere. It's literally, it engulfs the city of Las Vegas. And that's huge. I mean, Las Vegas is so huge. For some sport to be able to engulf it like that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that template too, that's become a business template for Vegas, right? Like what happened with the rodeo and this whole experience side, and kind of showing that what it can do, what Vegas can do for these, let's call them these niche industries,
right.
Have these Super Bowls, if you will, that it does it. We do it all the time. I mean, and it's to your point, when that dead time in December, what's happened is we've discovered other models that work. I'm making it up, in February or in hot July with the NBA Summer League. I mean, it's really kind of, it started that process because there really wasn't that going on prior to that in Vegas. So, I mean, rodeo in Vegas definitely amplified.
Yeah, it really has. Like I was listening to one of your podcasts, and it was Stetson, or I think it was Stetson, maybe it was Ryder. It was one of the Wright boys saying that what song generates when they think of Vegas, and they said Viva Las Vegas. And I thought, isn't that true? Like if I ever hear that song played anywhere else, I instantly, it catapults me to sitting in the Thomas and Mack hearing that kick off the rodeo, Viva Las Vegas. And it's become such a thing in its own, the NFR, Las Vegas, it's just sort of melded together. So I'm very proud to be part of something and watch the transition coming from a sport that was not as well known to being what it is now.
Where did your families, back in the 90s, where did you guys stay? Like what was the hotel for the Volts?
I honestly think I've stayed in just about every hotel in Las Vegas at one time or another. We were having that conversation at the Circuit Finals, and we were talking about that, and I was like, gosh, I think of some of the places. I mean, I think the very first 2 years we were there, we stayed at Alexis Park, and I think that name, I think it maybe has changed now. It's that resort that's on, I think it's Paradise, that's not too far down from the Thomas and Mack. And of course, back when I got there, like, children weren't allowed in casinos and stuff. That was a huge no-no. And so the first 2 years we were there, they offered this special rate for the NFR and people at Alexis Park of $30 a night, and there was no gambling. And so a lot of people stayed there because there was like a full kitchen, and it was a beautiful place. It was a resort there. And the big thing with no gambling is the kids could kind of run around and stuff and be free and not be under lock and key. And so we stayed there the first 2 years, and then by the third year, they'd up the price. And so I don't know if the first place we stayed after that was either the Sands, because then we went wherever the convention was, the PRC convention. And I think it was maybe the Sands the first year, and then I remember we were at the Riviera for quite a few years. And then I remember staying at the Stardust. I stayed at downtown in the Golden Nugget, stayed at the Mirage. I've stayed at several places that have been condemned since then, been blown up or whatever else. And we've stayed at the Luxor, obviously the Gold Coast, the Barbary Coast, the South Point for the last 15 years, I think. So I mean, we stayed. I feel like I've done my best to spread around Las Vegas hotels pretty evenly.
Yeah. You said Alexis Park. That actually it's across from, today it's now Virgin, but back then it was, Hard Rock didn't even, maybe it was just being built back then. But yeah, that's a great place. I mean, it's one of those gems that we have, like they're almost like giant condos, right? That
right. They were beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a lovely, even as a kid, I remember it was a very nice place to stay.
That's cool. You've gotten to see Vegas go from 0 to a million miles an hour growing up coming here. That's awesome.
It really has, because we're always there for such a long period of time. You have a chance to experience, everything. And when I came, Circus was like the only thing offered for kids. And now that's, holy cow, that's just one stop. There's been so many things that have been built for kids, and everybody's, obviously loosened up the guidelines as far as letting kids walk through casinos and stuff like that. So that's good, because it's made it a much more family-oriented city, and you kind of had for it to grow to the level that it is now. For tourism, people have to be able to bring their families, or there has to be something there for the kids to do. It can't all just be, adult entertainment. So Las Vegas has done a good job of making it a more well-rounded opportunity for families.
NFR Extra with our guest, Kirsten Vold from Vold Rodeo Company. We'll wrap up our conversation after the break.
Looking for tickets to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo? StubHub is the official secondary and fan-to-fan site of the rodeo. Fans can buy and sell their tickets through a safe and secure online marketplace. Visit nfrexperience.com.
The Yeti Junior World Final. He is back in Vegas. From December 2nd through 11th, the next generation of rodeo stars will compete at the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, held daily inside the Wrangler Rodeo Arena. Visit nfrexperience.com for details.
I'm Nikki Zachary, president of the Caldwell Night Rodeo, and I'm here with you on NFR Extra.
NFR Extra with Kirsten Vold.
Before we wrap up, I have to get into the feelings side of things and ask you about a horse and a woman, just because I call them heart horses. That's what I refer to them as, because there's always that one special horse that no matter what they do, if they are competing for you, if they are your pasture horse, whatever they are, I call them your heart horse. And I think Painted Valley definitely meant something to you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we lost him this past January, which I'm sure you probably know that. And, it was very impactful, but I choose to think of his life in the 19 years that we had him and not think of his death. And he was so impactful. He was the most impactful animal on this ranch. He put us back into the rodeo business. Our breeding program had kind of hit a slump. He was just kind of like I said several times, he was pennies from heaven, and he really was. I mean, he came into our lives at a time we needed it. It was kind of a transition point whenever I was at a spot I was taking over more and more of the company, making more and more of the decisions. And, we needed something to take us down a different road, and he did all of that. And when you think about the fact that one horse could do all of that, is, professionally, that's how I speak of him. I look out my window right now and I see all these horses hiding out from the wind, and 85% of them lead back to his bloodlines. And then I think about all the things, the accolades and everything that he did professionally. Personally, yeah, I mean, he consumed my life as far as being my friend. He was my buddy. I was there when he was born. I was there when we weaned him off his mom. I was there at the end. And so anytime you have any great love story, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And he'll always be that. His personality is what made him step out amongst other animals, especially because he was a bucking horse, and bucking horses are supposed to be wild. And he kind of set the standard for it being okay for bucking horses not to be wild, and people realizing that you could gentle them down and feed them horse cookies and they still could go out there and do what they wanted to do, that it's not about them being mean animals. It's about their athletic ability. And I take great pride in the fact that I think he opened all the doors for that and put animals and horses into a level where people realized that it was all of their genetics and not about their attitude. And so, I think the great thing, that's a gift that he gave to our sport as a whole.
When we had you on last, again, every time we have a guest on and they bring up something or they reference something that's connected to them or impacted them story-wise, what I love for me personally is I get to go research it. And after we had you on and you're talking about Pennies from Heaven and Painted Valley, all these scenarios, and I went and watched highlights, and holy crap, man. I mean, it was amazing to think, who rode and who, kind of what came along with that. But when I think about, when you talk about bloodlines and now you're raising new ones, is there there's who's next? Is there any that stick out right now that you're seeing that not a copy, not a duplicate of Painted Valley, but something that's as special coming from that scenario that you see that might be, again, I'll give you this reference. People have, and I'm not comparing dogs and horses, but pets in general.
Sure.
You have a dog. I had a dog when I was little. I hated that dog, right? And then my wife and I when we first lived together, we had a dog, and we loved Bailey. Bailey was with us for 15 years, and she passed away. Now we have Tank, and he's a meathead, but we have him for 6 years, and he hasn't replaced Bailey, but he's inserted himself within the other slot that maybe was missing for us, right? Or he's created a new slot. Is there a new slot that's being created by some of these young ones that you're bringing up that came from Painted Valley?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is Painted Fling, and he's a stud that we've raised that's obviously out of Painted Valley. And then he's kind of a little bit of a science project. They cloned the great horse Spring Fling that Flying Five owned, that bareback horse, and Bronc too, but they cloned her, and so then his mother is out of that clone. They flushed that clone and placed it in a reset mare, and that is his mother. And so we've had him since he was 6 months old. He was born at Timber Creek Vet Clinic in Canyon, Texas, and I brought him home when he was 6 months old after we weaned him off his mom, and brought him here, and we've had him here ever since. And he is very gentle. He's probably more spoiled. He's not as well mannered as Painted Valley was, if I'm going to compare the two, which I try not to do because I don't think that's fair. It's kind of like comparing two kids. But he's had a very good year. They won a lot of money on him. Took a lot of guys off this year. We'd anticipated he was going to go to the NFR. He was not selected, but that's here nor there. I think that he's going forward. I bucked his colts for the very first time because they're 4 years old, and earlier this month I bucked the first of his colts that we had on the ground, and they all really had a good showing. So I have a lot of faith that going forward he's going to help fill the void of that, genetically. Personally, he's just like a pet. He hangs out here a lot like Painted Valley did. Like I said, he's not as well mannered. He's kind of a little more spoiled, and so you kind of have to. But he's very friendly. He's very loving. He sees you. He comes running up to you like a dog. So those are a lot of the same characteristics that his dad had. So he's definitely helped filling that void of his dad's, of losing his dad. He'll never take the place of him, but he definitely helps fill that void. So I'm very grateful to have him. And going forward, doesn't always have to be those bloodlines. I don't have any other studs that I'm raising, but, I've got some mares out there and stuff that who knows what angle, what area that they'll go into. They'll have colts that'll later on hopefully carrying on the tradition.
Kirsten, this was fantastic having you on. Again, you came on when we first were breaking out with the podcast and figured some things out, and here we were able to dive in. And I mean, again, we talked about a myriad of topics here, which I don't think Bo or I were capable of doing a few years ago when you were on here. So,
well, I've enjoyed the visit too. I've enjoyed visiting with both of you, and I appreciate you guys asking me back on again.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't wait to see you in Vegas. Good luck, and good luck with 2022. Obviously we got a lot more going on here with the rodeo universe, and things are just getting started, it seems like.
No, I agree with you. Things are just picking back up, and I think rodeo's Only getting better. Everybody had great crowds in 2021, and I love the way that's going to go in 2022.
All right. Well, God bless. Thank you for visiting us, and we really appreciate this.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We want to give a big thank you to Kirsten Vold for hanging out with us on NFR Extra.
Want to experience more of NFR? Then visit nfrexperience.com. And we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a big 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.
NFR Extra.
All dirt.
All rodeo.
All year.
Gotta make it out to Vegas, where the big boys roam, with the rovers and the racers and the bulls and the broncs, and the ladies in the skin-tight wranglers and the cowboy